It started with a trembling voice on the phone. "You need to see this, now." Jordan froze at those words. For months, he had ignored the whispered warnings, the sudden hostility, the cold stares whenever he walked through the neighborhood he had only recently moved into. As the only black homeowner in an old gated community led by an HOA president with an iron grip, he had sensed tension, but never imagined how deep it went. When he rounded the corner that day, the sight nearly stole the air from his lungs. On the back edge of his property, land he inherited from his grandfather, heavy machinery stood like metal beasts, tearing through soil that held his family's history. And rising behind the dust, framed by arrogant beams and fresh concrete, was something impossible to ignore, a sprawling mansion. Half-built directly on his land. The workers wouldn't meet his eyes. The foreman muttered something about orders from above, and at the center of it all, arms folded with unsettling confidence, stood the HOA president, Evelyn Crane. The woman, known for her polite smile, backhanded compliments, and thinly veiled dislike for certain kinds of new residents. Jordan felt anger, disbelief, and a creeping fear mixing in his chest. How had she thought she could get away with this? Why his land, and what would happen when he tried to fight back against someone who clearly believed she was untouchable? This wasn't just a construction theft, it was a declaration, and the battle was only beginning. Wait a second, let us know where you're watching from in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for more powerful and inspiring stories just like this one. Jordan's connection to the land ran deeper than the deed. His grandfather, a proud Vietnam veteran, had bought the quiet 2-acre lot decades ago when black families were still discouraged, verbally and otherwise, from settling in that town. It was one of the first pieces of land in the area legally owned by a black family, and it had remained untouched ever since. When Jordan inherited it, he promised himself he would build a future worthy of his grandfather's struggle. The neighborhood seemed calm at first. Tree-lined streets, neatly trimmed, lawns, predictable suburban quiet. But the small glances he received during community meetings, the unspoken assessments, the forced politeness, he noticed. Evelyn Crane, the long-standing HOA president, embodied the atmosphere perfectly. Everything about her, from her firm handshake to her clipped tone, gave Jordan the impression that she believed the neighborhood was hers alone. Jordan's home sat on 1 acre. The remaining land stretched behind it, waiting for plans he hoped to start in a year. But whenever he mentioned the extra land at meetings, Evelyn's expression tightened. She would change the topic, usually to community standards or preserving property values. The warning signs had been there, the survey flags he didn't recognize. The unexpected letters from the HOA suggested structural expansion opportunities. The workers he saw near the edge of his property, who claimed they were doing maintenance. Jordan dismissed these oddities, assuming it was all a misunderstanding, until the day his friend Martin called and said, "I think someone's building something on your land." Jordan didn't want to believe it, but as he rushed outside and followed, the sound of machinery, his heart pounded with disbelief. His private land, his family's legacy, was being ripped apart, transformed into the foundation of a mansion he had never approved, and the person responsible had done it without hesitation. Jordan confronted Evelyn that day, adrenaline burning through him, but she stood calm, too calm. She claimed the land wasn't his, waving a stack of papers like a shield, documents he had never seen. Maps slightly altered, signatures that looked almost, but not exactly, like his. He realized then, this wasn't an accident. This was a calculated. Over the following weeks, the situation spiraled out of control. Every time Jordan filed a complaint, the HOA responded with legal jargon and slow delays. Every time he tried to talk to the construction crew, they told him Evelyn had handled everything. The mansion grew taller, louder, and more intrusive, its shadow stretching toward his home like a taunt. Neighbors watched from their porches, some with concern, others with smug disinterest. Jordan overheard whispers. "He doesn't understand how things work here. He should be grateful the neighborhood is being improved." They hid behind civility, but the message was clear. They believed he didn't belong. A retired neighbor quietly pulled Jordan aside one morning. With a voice shaky from age and fear, he confessed that Evelyn had been grabbing land, bending rules, and intimidating residents for years, but never this boldly. "She thinks you won't fight back," he said. "People like her. They count on people like you staying quiet." Jordan refused. He hired a surveyor who confirmed the truth. The mansion's foundation sat 37 feet into Jordan's land. The surveyor's hands trembled as he spoke, fearful of the HOA's reputation for retaliation. But he documented everything with timestamps, high-resolution images, and GPS coordinates. Then came the discovery that changed everything. A title lawyer reviewed the documents Evelyn claimed proved ownership and found multiple inconsistencies. Altered dates, mismatched stamps, filed documents are missing from the county records. Someone had attempted to forge a transfer of ownership, but sloppily. Before Jordan could take legal action, things got worse. Evelyn approached him with a chilling mixture of arrogance and entitlement. She told him that fighting the HOA was unwise, that he should consider selling, and that the neighborhood would be better for it. She spoke with a smile, but her tone dripped with the familiarity of discrimination generations older than her. Her message was clear: give up, know your place. Jordan felt the weight of history on his shoulders. His grandfather had fought for the right to own land in a country that tried to deny him dignity. Now, decades later, someone was trying to rip that legacy away because she thought she could. Jordan filed a lawsuit, and the moment Evelyn received the notice, construction mysteriously halted. The neighborhood buzzed with tension. Neighbors whispered louder. HOA board members avoided him, and Evelyn, once confident, began showing cracks, her smile thinner, her tone sharper, her eyes colder. The battle had shifted, and the courtroom was now the battleground where truth or corruption would. The courtroom fell silent as the judge flipped through the forged documents. Everyone saw it. The mismatched signatures, the tampered stamps, the inconsistent pages stitched together like a counterfeit puzzle. Evelyn sat rigid, her usual confidence drained, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. When Jordan's surveyor presented the high-resolution measurements and GPS-matched coordinates, the judge's expression hardened. Then came the county clerk's testimony. No record had ever existed showing any transfer of Jordan's additional land. The implications were devastating. Evelyn tried to defend herself, claiming she misunderstood, that the land had been vacant and unused, and that Jordan had never shown interest. But her excuses crumbled under evidence. Then the judge delivered the blow. Not only had Evelyn illegally built on private property, she had knowingly submitted forged documents to push a black homeowner out of the neighborhood. The ruling hit, like lightning. Immediate demolition of the illegal mansion. Full damages awarded to Jordan. Criminal investigation into Evelyn and the HOA board. Gasps filled the courtroom, and at that moment, Evelyn realized the empire she had built on intimidation and privilege was collapsing before everyone. The demolition began at dawn. Jordan watched as the mansion, once a symbol of arrogance and attempted erasure, crumbled piece by piece. Neighbors who had looked down on him now watched silently, some shamefully avoiding eye contact. Others approached with quiet apologies, too late to matter. But Jordan wasn't watching the destruction alone. He held the framed photograph of his grandfather, feeling the weight of legacy and justice intertwining. The ruling didn't just restore his land. It restored dignity, stolen by generations of prejudice, disguised as rules and standards. The HOA underwent a full investigation. Evelyn lost her position, her property, and her reputation. For the first time, the community faced the truth. Discrimination wasn't a thing of the past. It had been living comfortably behind gated streets. Jordan rebuilt, not just his land, but a sense of belonging. And he wondered, how many more stories like this go unheard? Where are you watching from? What country and city? Take care.